Here's my review of Fallout. I thought this show was very good. And I went in the show, I have never played any of the Fallout games, so I didn't really know what to expect. Like I knew kind of the basic premise, like it takes place in this like post-apocalyptic like nuclear wasteland, but like that's kind of all I knew. So I went in this blind and I really liked it. And one of the main things that I loved the most about it was probably its aesthetic because we start in the 1960s essentially, where we have Walton Goggins' character, who I don't think we got his actual real name, but because he's just called the Ghoul, and where he's like basically playing this, where he's this actor, and he's playing this cowboy at this person's birthday party, and that's when the nuke goes off, and because of that, it's kind of like the people who were able to survive in the bunkers. The bunkers are designed like the 1960s ish, which I thought was just one of my favorite parts about this whole show was just the aesthetic. And I will say, like, this one thing I also like about the show is for a show about the like this nuclear holocaust essentially, and this like in these bunkers with our main character of Lucy, like she is so hopelessly optimistic. It just makes her such a fun character to be around. And there's plenty of different subplots with one of the main ones of is her looking for her father like after there's this like break in into her vault. And we get a lot of different kind of lore about what's going on in this vault. It's like, oh, we can't go in vault 96, I think it was, they said. Can't go in that vault. And like you kind of get these different tidbits of lore. And this is a 8 episode show, and it feels like you're kind of slowly learning more about this world throughout this entire show. One of the best characters in this, like I said, is the Ghoul, who like I said, Walton Goggins is fantastic in anything he's in. And he's no different here, as here's almost like this cowboy bounty hunter, and the design is just awesome. Especially like his like just the way he walks, his design, everything about it is just screams like I want to be away from that guy. Not just the way he looks, but almost just the way his personality is just scary. And it's interesting because when we get to these flashbacks, we see these flashbacks about what he was like before the nuclear bombs, and he was just such this like nice guy, and it just makes you think of how people can change, and it makes you sick of just this whole situation. But it takes a very on an upbeat approach and tone for what is essentially the show, albeit fictional and very over exaggerated and futuristic, about this nuclear holocaust. It's just very interesting. And does a good job of showing just like the decimation, like when Lucy first leaves the bunker. It's just kind of like, okay, this is bad. And just and with anything that has to do with anything like an apocalyptic show, just seeing like the rundown buildings, like seeing all this stuff is just so interesting. And there, like I said, how there's many different subplots. Learning about like this vault tech, like whenever we get flashbacks to Walton Goggins' character when he's talking with his wife about how she works for Vault Tech, and we're seeing these like kind of almost scummy ways of how they think that like, oh, all these nuclear bombs were planned just to have people live underground. It's just all these, but it's like, did it really happen? Is it that really exactly what's happening? It's these intrigues, this interesting subplots, where not necessarily they are main plots. Like there's multiple different kind of plots. It feels like, and it just kind of leaves you with, oh, that's interesting. I want to know more about that. And even like in an episode where Lucy gets kidnapped and by this robot, and where he's literally said, "I am about to harvest your organs." It's more just like, huh? And it can go like flip on a dime where it's like so upbeat. Like this is a dark show. This is a rated R show, but it's just like the positivity aura that this character brings is just so much fun. That's what makes this show work, I think, because it's like the show would still be great, but I mean like I think it's like Lucy that makes it. It gives it that positivity that makes you not feel depressed. Even though I won't even say like the other parts, like with Walton Goggins' character, like they're not like necessarily like there's like not necessarily a super depressing tone, but it's like Lucy, I think, is really what makes this show great because it's just this fun in what's terrible, and you're able to see the bright side. like I said, there's a lot of like random horrifying scenes right there, like with this robot trying to harvest her organs was one of them where I'm like, I know she's the main character, she's not gonna die, but at the same part, I'm like, I don't know, I've never played the games, maybe she does. So that was a very, very intense moment. I thought it was great. And also like learning about our characters, like this one guy, the military guy, who's in these suits, and just getting to learn more about him was just interesting. I will say he's not as interesting as our main character, and then Walton Goggins' character is the Ghoul, but he's still, I think, had enough to him to like not get you, to still you're like, I can still be around this guy when we're watching this show. Like you see how he was in the military, and you see what he went through before all these nuclear wars in 2076. Like I think that's when. I don't know. I'm kind of confused with the timeline, but I was paying attention, but maybe I was a little confused. But it's just I think that he was the least interesting of those three main characters, but he's still pretty interesting. And just like the creature design, because of these nuclear radiation, you just see these awesome monster designs, which is just awesome. And there's just always something I feel like in every episode where it's like, oh, that's fun. That's different. But I will say, I think the most compelling character, I think, is Walton Goggins the Ghoul. Like when we're in the back, like when we're watching him with his wife and what happened. Like he's a character is like there's no action. Well, I mean there is like in the present, well, future. But when we're in these flashbacks, it's just kind of like all this character work, but it's like Walton Goggins is just so great, and it's just his character is just so interesting. It's like I want to know about this. And it's like it takes this terrifying experience of this nuclear attack, and then it grounds you in reality of these intimate personal stories that I thought were just beautiful. So yeah, I still say like the Ghoul, Walton Goggins, is probably my favorite character in the show. Although all the characters I really liked. So it's like you're feeling like this sense of fun and optimism, and then also feeling this sense of horror when you're seeing these terrifying creatures, and just the idea of these nukes in this apocalyptic wasteland. It makes you scared, but in the same time, I think that Lucy's character is just she's so much fun to be around. It's able to keep you just like this is just fun. Like I said, like the Ghoul, my favorite. It's got to be my favorite character. Whether we're in the back learning about his past as an actor, very interesting, and then how he turns into this character, how he goes from someone that is so kind of fun and upbeat and just like loves his wife, loves his family, and then he goes to what he becomes. It's kind of terrifying. It's tragic, and I thought that it was done beautifully. So yeah, there's these intense moments, whether it's with horror, great action, with these great monsters and robots, as well as just the genuine fun between the characters, as well as just the dramatic parts between the characters. It's all just so engaging because of all these performances are so good, because these characters are so interesting. I believe that all of this comes together to create a very compelling show. So it's like, even if you have not played the games, like I'm someone who has not played the game, I don't know anything about the games, I still highly recommend that you check this show out. As if I were to really, though summarize, I've been talking this entire time, but if I were to really just say what this show truly is, it feels like a Western that you dropped a bomb on with a little bit of monsters. That's what it does kind of feel like. And I thought that it was great. I loved almost all the characters. The action was just so much fun. The monster designs were so much cool. So much cool. We're so cool. And it's just it's an episode, it's a show that I'm like, I don't want to go to this world, but I want to keep watching this world. I want to spend time with these characters. I want to see what's going to happen next. And it's just a show where each episode you're like, ooh, that's interesting. And it's just the little things like that. So overall, I thoroughly enjoyed the show, and I would highly recommend you check it out.